Yeah, polls closed at 7 o'clock and results are starting to roll in. So let's get right to it, Ryan, with some of our analysis.
The touchscreen is fired up and ready tonight.
And we want to point out, while yes, we are in the Christmas spirit, it's red as in red means go.
No. Red means no.
Oh, red means.
Yeah. It's okay. Green means go.
That's why we have you here.
That's why I'm here.
Green is go. Those propositions passed. Red is no. Those propositions failed. You know what? We could go in order, or we could get to the one we know that you care about.
Let's do those.
Probably the most. And that would definitely be Prop 4. This is the proposition to increase the homestead exemption from $60,000 to, from $40,000 to $100,000. It's a $60,000 increase on those property taxes, and the race has been called.
It's already called. You see the yellow check mark right here, almost 84% of the vote, just under 913,000 positive votes for this, a difference of more than 736,000 votes. Texans definitely in favor of the increase in the homestead tax exemption. You can see one county, touch that county. I'm just curious which county voted against it. Hamilton County, but just by one vote so far. And that's not even quite all the votes in there. So that'll probably turn green.
It probably will. Definitely things are going to change as the night progresses. The other big one that we just want to skip to, just skimming over because we want to give you some of these results, is Prop 9, and that is the COLA, the retired teachers cost of living adjustment. They've not received a COLA, Brian, some of these teachers in 20 years.
You know, it really is sad that that's the case. Now, I know this is going to be between 2 and 6%, depending on how many years you taught and how many years you've been retired. But you can see now 80% of the vote so far. Touch total again. That's just Hamilton County. Let's see the state. Yeah, even greater than that, almost 84, a little over 84% of the vote. 747,000 more yeses than noes, Ashley. That's an overwhelming victory for retired teachers in the state of Texas. Of course, a lot of people, still 40% of the vote, but I think that number is going to continue to be pretty high.
I don't think you're going to see any red on this map by the end of the night when it comes to Prop 9. So now let's take a moment to go in order since we've told you about the ones you care about the most. We'll start with Prop 1, which this is the right to farm and ranch, Brian. And basically what this is there are concerns that some ranchers and farmers are being over-regulated by the cities and counties that they live in. And so there are Texas lawmakers who note that the population is growing and we got to feed all these people that are coming to Texas and living in Texas. And so they want to limit what cities and counties can regulate and instead go by what is considered general farming standards. And those general standards are set on a statewide basis. And so that's that idea for people who probably looked at the ballot and said, what? The right to farm? What? That's what that means.
It makes their job easier.
It makes their job easier.
And Texas is, of course, a state with a very, very rich history, farming and ranching, still very important in a lot of parts of the Panhandle, down along the Texas Gulf Coast. So this is a big, overwhelming victory, again, for farmers and ranchers in the state.
Yeah, and when we take a moment to just kind of look at the heat, you can really see it. I mean, it really passed overwhelmingly across the state of Texas. Moving on to Prop 2. This is the child care tax exemption, and this is a really interesting proposition. The idea was to allow certain child care facilities. These are certain child care facilities that have to meet a certain standard with the state in terms of the Texas workforce and the children that they serve, to allow cities and counties, if they choose, to exempt a portion of their property taxes from these child care facilities. The idea is these businesses will save money, and two things will happen. One, that they'll pass some of those savings on to the parents and pay the staff more, and two, that they'll open more child care facilities because we've seen so many of them close, so many child care facilities just shuttered during the pandemic. And so you can see, while it is passing, that has not been called yet.
Yeah, still not called.
There are some areas of Texas where they're not a fan of giving up some of those tax dollars.
You can see the difference in voting here. Yes over no, about 316, just under 317,000 votes. Again, this is statewide, so you can still see a little red on the map. But if you would actually zoom in, let's just take a quick look at our viewing area. Pretty significant. Still some counties not reporting, but Williamson, Travis, Hayes, Hayes County. Let's just check Travis County real quick and see. Yeah, 75%. So this is going to stay green, I think, statewide for sure. Williamson County as well. You can see over 10,000 different between yes and no in Williamson County for Proposition 2 statewide.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's zoom back out here and move on to Prop 3. Prop 3 is an interesting proposition.
Yeah.
This is a proposition that would
hit total for you. Yeah, let's get
on the totals. There we go.
We were still on Wilco.
Prop 3 is a proposition to prohibit Texas from ever having a net worth tax. Now, we want to note Texas does not have now, nor are lawmakers talking about implementing a net worth tax. This would be a tax on what someone is worth minus what they owe. But some states were talking about it. Yeah. And ahead of the legislative session. And so lawmakers wanted to make sure that this was not going to be a thing in Texas, which sounds good until you zoom on in.
One red county in the entire state of Texas voting no.
And that's Travis County.
And it's really not close.
It's not close. And so you take a moment and you say, well, this is what the consensus, 48% of the voters in Travis County feel like. Let's not rule out taxing, ways to tax. It's a long shot in Texas anyway, but perhaps we need to find new ways to fund schools and fund other things. And so voters in Travis County said, we don't want to exit out.
That's the key. They're not saying we want a wealth tax. They're saying let's don't rule it out altogether at this point. Again, significantly more in Travis County, significantly less statewide. So I don't think that's going to really stand up anywhere but Travis County. But our local voters had a vote just like everybody else. And
so let's compare that to Williamson County. It's almost the exact flip in terms of how folk in Wilco feel about that tax. Hayes County, slightly closer.
Yeah, pretty close.
With 42% of the precincts reporting, so still have a lot of reporting to get to in that, in this race in Hayes County. But certainly interesting. And to your point, folks in Travis County just didn't want to rule it out. So we get that.
We definitely get that statewide. It's weird to see just the one red and it be a local county, but that's just how it is. And that's the good thing about the way our graph is here. It updates constantly throughout the night. You might even see the numbers change while we're on one of these propositions. So these results keep coming in today. You can see up at the top the reporting and the estimated total vote right there, 48%. So yeah, we're still about halfway through. And again, Ashley, we should talk about low voter turnout this time. Early voting, and today we're hearing. So these numbers aren't going to be like we'll see next November when we've got a presidential race, a state, or a U.S. Senate seat from Texas, Ted Cruz trying to defend his seat. That'll be next November. So the numbers will go up between now and then, but today's voting pretty low.
Yeah, we saw about 7.92% of all of the registered voters in Travis County cast their ballots early. What we typically see, Brian, when it comes to voter turnout is the same number of voters who voted early turn around and come out on election day. And so you can expect that number to double. But if you take a look at statewide totals, I mean, there's 1.2 million voters registered in the state of Texas, and only about 7% of them cast ballots thus far.
Well, that's the turnout, right? 1.2 million turned out to vote today, which is less than 7% statewide, which is, that's not very many people. Not very many people showed up to vote early or today. But again, these propositions going to affect 100% of the states. So it's important to know what's on the ballot this year.
And hats off to the folks who are watching, because you guys probably went out and voted.
That's right.
Sure if you're watching, you cared enough to vote. So hats off to you guys. Prop 4. Let's really take a moment. I want to take a moment and really dive into what is in Prop 4, because this proposition, while on the face of it, we talk about the increased homestead exemption, there were actually 5 different sections in Prop 4, and I believe we have some graphics we want to show you. The first part of Prop 4 actually put a temporary limit on non-homestead appraisal values. So these are properties that are not where someone lives. We're talking about businesses, rental properties you may have. And it put a 20% circuit breaker on those properties for 3 years, as long as those properties were valued at $5 million or less. And basically what that means is that the taxable value of those homes, Brian, can't increase more than 20% year over year.
Year over year.
Similar to your home, it can't increase by 10% year over year, 20% for businesses. And this is just really to help business owners be able to predict how much their property tax bills are going to cost. The next part of Prop 4, this is the part that everybody knows about, right? And this increases the homestead exemption on the taxable value of your home from $40,000 to $100,000. Now, this is estimated to save the average homeowner $1,200 a year. And in so many counties in Texas, it's going to eliminate property taxes altogether for people because their homes are valued at or less than $100,000 a year. Now, it does this through tax rate compression. So it reduces the maintenance and operations tax rate by 10.7 cents. That is the money that schools use for their day-to-day operations. That's what the M&O tax rate is. And so that's the second part of Prop 4. The third part of Prop 4 makes sure that people who are elderly and disabled are able to receive some of these tax benefits. In May 2022, voters approved a tax cut for the elderly and disabled, but because of how that law was written, not everyone saw those savings. So this corrects that and makes sure that the seniors and the disabled are able to enjoy the increased homestead exemption and any other future savings that happen. The fourth part of Prop 4 really has to deal with that tax rate compression. So in order to pay for all of this, right, it's $18 billion, but the Constitution puts a limit on how much money lawmakers can spend each session, and obviously $18 billion would really cut into that spending limit. And so this just exempts this money, the money that's used to pay for Prop 4, from that spending cap. And then the last part of Prop 4 expands the appraisal board of directors in large counties. So Texans who live in counties with populations of 75,000 people or more will get to elect 3 members of the board who will work alongside the 5 appointed members. These elected members will serve 4-year terms. And again, this passed, just if we look at the total, Brian, overwhelmingly.
It's important to remember, too, how we got to this point. This legislature, way back in January, this was the big item for the governor, for the lieutenant governor. Dade Phelan was one of the ones they were working with across the, well, not across the aisle, but across the hallway in the state capitol.
But this was the campaign promise from everybody.
This was it.
Republicans and Democrats alike. Last year, it was, we're going to reduce property taxes.
That was it.
And they fought and fought and fought.
They fought a lot, and a lot of people were on board with it in the state of Texas. You could see just shy of 1 million votes in the positive, just under 180,000 against. Not sure who those people are at this point, but I guess they have their reason. But it seems like this is going to benefit a lot of homeowners and businesses here in the state of Texas.
Yeah. You know, when we think about what might be their reason, so there are parts of Prop 4, because it is so expansive, because it does have those 5 different parts that people might not be on board with. You might not be on board with businesses capping how much their property taxes can go up year over year, because that could impact or will impact schools and school funding. And so you can see a world where some people who, you know, feel differently about the taxing structure. Also, we know from past years that when we are in a budget deficit, times are good now.
They're good now.
$37 billion surplus. That's $37 billion. That's just our throwaway extra money that we weren't even expecting to have.
Just found that in our statewide couch.
Just coins. You know, that money is good. Times are good now. That's a record. That's not happening again. All the economists have said we're not again going to have a pandemic that shuts down the world and then all of a sudden lets up.
Knock on some wood here. I
said experts said. I didn't say I said. I said the experts, the economists. That's what they like to say.
As long as you're not on the record.
Right.
There.
I'm not. That's not my words. But because once those lockdowns lifted, people started. There was a stimulus. People started spending money, and you know folk wanted to go places, you wanted to travel, you wanted to see things because we missed so much of life.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we saw so much surplus, so much people spending so much money. The likelihood of that replicating, while I think we will have budget surpluses, certainly in the coming years, we know that when we're in deficits, one of the first things that gets cut is school funding. In fact, that's how Texas got into the situation it's in now with underfunded schools is we cut school funding.
School funding was the first to go. Zoom in, if you would. Let's check out our local counties, how the local counties did with Proposition 4 here. And I want you to mention also, this was passed with bipartisan support as well. This was not something that the Republicans just decided on and worked their way through the Republican side to get passed. There were a lot of Democrats on board with that proposition as well.
There were Democrats on board. I think I would say the Democrats had to this was not their fight, if you will.
Exactly.
The bigger fight was between the House and the Senate. You remember we had a 180-day regular session, we had a 30-day special session, then we had a second 30-day special session, and that's when I think we really saw how nasty things started to get between Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Speaker of the House Dade Phelan. Their relationship obviously fractured now. It is no...
But it kind of began there, didn't it? I guess it didn't begin there, but it kind of exacerbated.
Became public. It became public there. When you had the Lieutenant Governor saying the Speaker is himself going to benefit from aspects. One of the things that the Senate did not want to do, they were not fans of that 20% circuit breaker for businesses. Just that it would cost the state too much money. They did not want to do it. But one of the things that they took from the House is the one who came up with the $100,000 homestead exemption idea. That was the House. And so once you threw that out there, the Lieutenant Governor grabbed onto it, kind of sunk his heels into it and said, all right, well, that's what we're going to do then. Fine.
Compromise is compromise, I guess.
And it was interesting to see, where the governor fell in this fighting. But that fighting, they kind of kissed and made up at the end once they reached a resolution. But that was clearly short-lived.
It was. It was. Now they're talking about Charlie Brown's teachers and things like that.
Yes, and lots of name calling going on.
What did Travis County do on Proposition 4? A little bit closer in Travis County
compared to Williamson County. Certainly.
Again, these are still less than half the vote in, but you could see Hays County significant.
And and I think it's important to look at some of our rural counties. Bastrop County. Folk wanted out there. Lee County.
That's right. They get KVUE Plus out in Lee County.
Fayette County. You guys can get us too.
That's right. So, they get it out there. It's interesting to look at Burnett County. Yeah, look at that. Again, not terribly huge numbers, 43% reporting, but you can tell significant positivity in Burnett County for Prop 4.
280 people said no thanks.
Yeah.
So when you look at it in those terms, this again, I think, Brian, Lano, yes, they're not clicking on this, but they're not showing up because there's nothing
They're still counting out in Llano County. Gillespie County's got some. Wow, look at that. Yeah. You tell the difference. The rural counties definitely wanting to see this homestead exemption, this increase of the homestead exemption, more than doubling really from 40 to 100,000. And that's a huge, huge number for Gillespie County.
Sure. And not only that, Brian, but because when you think about when we talk about, or when we hear lawmakers, I should say, talk about eliminating taxes for people. This is how you would eliminate a tax for someone. Obviously, bonds, if voters approve bonds for a school district, you have the INS rate, which is like, what the debt that the district has occurred. But when you talk about if your home is worth $100,000, we're going to eliminate this property tax for you. Well, and so you can, and the state has said, and we're going to put in the money still. Schools are still going to get the same amount of money, and we're going to eliminate that tax for you. I think that's why you see people.
That's the important part.
Right.
Public schools. I was going to ask you something about. Well, let's keep moving on. We got time.
So we'll zoom back out. Help me, Brian.
Hit that total, and we'll get to the state. But again, Prop 4 significant, already checked. It's done deal.
Yep. The Associated Press calling that as a yes. All right, so let's take a look at Prop 5. And this is the Texas University Fund. And basically all this would do was take a fund that we already have in Texas, the National Research University Fund, and we're going to rename it to be the Texas University Fund. And what this fund is used for is we're trying to make sure state universities can get recognition, national recognition as research institutions. Because what that will do is bring more people, bring more money, bring more researchers.
Jobs, bring more researchers,
Everyone wants it in Texas. And so
increase the visibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if this passes tonight, the legislature is going to take that surplus, that couch money.
That couch money. What did we say earlier? 30? Was it 33?
37.
37?
I think it's 37.5, but we can just go with the B.
Yeah.
And they're going to put $4 billion towards Prop 5.
Yeah.
So this would be $4 billion injected into this, and then it would get another $100 million every year, up to $100 million. It'll be funded by the interest and the dividends off of the rainy day fund. So not called yet. And interestingly, you have some counties some folks who are against it.
Yeah. Well, again, that's what voting's all about. You can see some of the rural counties, not many public universities in that part of the state, so maybe not as many people interested in that part of our voting today, Proposition 5. So yeah, you're going to see that. Let's just out of curiosity, let's just see close. I bet they're all about 50-50.
I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
This is when you talk about every vote matters.
Yeah.
19.
And that's what county? San Saba County, just to our west, Mills County. Again, not
4.
It's going to most of the red, I would assume, is going to be.
Interesting
50,
that Milam County, we're considering, but one of the other things we want to point out is on the Texas University Fund, not all universities are eligible for this funding. Now, if we look at Hayes County, let me tell you something. Texas State can get this funding, and so Texas State,
Hayes County is significant. You're right.
I'm definitely going to vote for it, but it's not for all universities just yet.
Now we talk about infrastructure.
Infrastructure. I know how much you like. I know how much you like these because these are so important.
Yeah.
So when we think about Proposition 6, this would create the Texas Water Fund, and one of the reasons why this is so important is because the Texas Water Development Board estimates that every year, after I had to write this number down, the state of Texas loses 136 billion gallons of water just because of leaky pipes. Just because of leaky pipes.
Yeah.
That is enough water to supply the cities of Austin, Fort Worth, El Paso, Laredo, and Lubbock all together for an entire year. That's how much water we're just losing because of our infrastructure, that it's inferior. And so this would, start this fund.
$1 billion.
Start this fund so that we can start to replace some pipes and give some grants money and some loans out, low interest loans, to do these local water projects.
It's a lot of money for water.
It's a lot of money. It's needed money.
It is definitely needed, and I think that's overwhelming. I've already been called by the Associated Press with less than 50% of the vote. They see the direction Proposition 6 is headed in more water and help for the water infrastructure, which again is so important when you're in a state of 30 million people and you're growing by hundreds and hundreds each and every day. Everybody needs water. Everybody needs roads. Everybody's going to need broadband, which we're going to get to. These are such important propositions that I'm glad that we see some of the significant differences in yes and no, because you got to fix things if you want to keep growing like we're growing here in Texas.
And worth noting, this is money coming from our budget surplus. It's not like we're going to take more money away or tax you more to pay for it. We've got this big surplus. Let's put some money into some infrastructure. That brings us to Proposition 7.
Which is $5 billion. Go ahead, Ashley.
Can you guys tell that Brian missed his calling to do some sports writing? This is great. So this is this is great in terms of Brian's writing. Okay, let me say that. So Proposition 7 would create the Texas Energy Fund, and what this would be used for, and why it gets a little bit of pushback, and we'll zoom in and talk about this in a little bit, is it would fund low interest loans, zero interest loans, and completion bonuses for completing dispatchable energy projects. But those dispatchable energy projects would be gas-powered power plants. And so when we zoom in, it is, I think, no surprise that the folks in Travis County are not big fans of more gas. In fact, this proposition specifically states that solar and wind can't get this money. And so when you see people who want to see renewable energy, that's why they would vote against it. However, when we look at Williamson County, when we look at Hayes County, Bastrop County.
Hayes County was closer than I anticipated.
Yeah, a little bit.
And again, this relates to, everybody remembers the winter storm of 2021. Everybody remembers what happened last year when several issues developed with power in and around the state of Texas. people still, it's fresh on their minds.
It's definitely, I mean, if you think about hundreds of people died.
Yeah.
And millions of us were without power and water.
For days.
Some weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what this is all related to.
And that's what this is about is, you know, Senator Charles Schwartner, who were from Georgetown, is the mind behind this. And when we say dispatchable energy projects, the idea is think of it like a generator for the state. We want to have a generator electric power plants so that when we realize things are going awry or when we realize there's going to be more demand than there is supply, you can call them up and say, hey, fired it on up.
Yeah. Or if what happened in 2021 when there's maintenance happening at certain places, or you don't get as much wind generation, or
solar.
So many little things can happen. This is more of a safeguard than anything else, the way I look at it, in that you can keep the state power on.
Right. And that's what we all, at the end of the day, we all want it on. We all need those ACs and heaters and lights. So
statewide, yeah, that one looks like a definite positive, just under 66% yes for Proposition 7, infrastructure.
Let's see who else voted no. Folk in Mills County overwhelmingly, really. We say overwhelmingly, but there's not a great deal of voters.
Now, is that a significant wind generation area? It might be. We'll have to look that up.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Considering where it is located, that would make a lot of sense as to why they might feel that way, because they would feel like they're being left out.
They're being left out, and that's understandable.
Yeah. So we will zoom back out. Let's move on to Prop 8. This is another one that you really tell us about it.
This is broadband. Let's be honest. You got 1 point. Let me just tell you how much.
5.
How much? Tell you 1.5 billion.
5 billion.
Is it 5? I've got 1.5 written down.
1.5, you're right.
Either way, we'll take it. But it's a lot of money for broadband. And that's one thing, of course, you're taking advantage of right now, watching us on KVUE Plus, having the ability to expand that statewide.
Right.
Let's make sure everybody from I like to do this. Everybody from up here to over here to down here, even way over here in Texarkana, everybody has broadband access.
And these are the areas where they don't have it.
Exactly.
And we really saw a lot of holes during the COVID pandemic when children were having to switch to virtual learning, and it wasn't a possibility. I mean, even if you think about in Travis County and Austin, there were spots where the school district had to take buses and make them essentially Wi-Fi hotspots and park them in neighborhoods where
libraries,
where people did not have access to broadband. But these rural areas don't even have the infrastructure to build it. The reason I'm thinking about $5 billion is because that's how much the author of this bill wanted.
Wanted it in the initial.
He wanted $5 billion.
That's right.
The Senate said.
Which was Senator?
Oh, no. It started in the House, and you know what?
I don't remember. I thought it was a senator. So.
There's 150 of them. I'll be honest, I don't remember this one.
What's our area looking like for Prop 8? What did we do here locally? I'm just curious about Williamson, Travis, and Hayes.
I think we overwhelmingly support. Well, now that's interesting. That's a little less than I think I would have thought, because again, this is surplus money. This is budget surplus money. This is not new tax revenue or waste. It's actually already written into the budget.
I was just curious, some of the rural areas.
To see how they, well, you know what, let's zoom out and let's look at some of those areas that are missing some of this. You know, these more rural areas do overwhelmingly support.
Look at that.
You know, do overwhelmingly support. These are the folks who need it the most.
What about Harris County? What's Harris County got?
Now, Harris County.
Okay. That's your home. That's your home.
I'm proud of Harris County.
Me too.
51% reporting right now. You guys remember what happened.
Second best team in the American League was from Harris County this year. That's baseball talk.
Brian.
It's baseball talk. What about Dallas County?
You know what we're not going to do?
Let's see where the champions are. Look at there. That's an overwhelming victory in Dallas County.
You guys, if you watch KVUE News at 5, you know any opportunity that Brian has to talk about Dallas teams over Houston teams.
It's Tarrant County. I was in the wrong county.
I wasn't even going to mess. I was going to let you do it. I was going to let you do it.
So, broadband, a positive result for Proposition 8. And, you're right. The rural areas definitely came out to support creating some broadband access in the entire state.
Yeah. For sure.
Here it is, Prop 9.
Prop 9, this is such an important proposition. So this is that teacher COLA. It is a cost of living adjustment for retired teachers in Texas. So
not Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Cost of living adjustment.
Thank you for that, Brian Mays.
Just making sure everybody understood. Let's do statewide real quick.
Yes, our statewide totals looking at that cost of living adjustment. And so we have some more information about what all is in this. Retired Texas teachers have not received a cost of living adjustment since 2013. And even when this was approved in 2013, only teachers who retired by August 2004 actually got that COLA. So teachers who retired in the last 20 years have not had a cost of living adjustment, even though the cost of goods and services has gone up significantly, Brian. You know that in the past 20 years, things don't cost what they used to. So Prop 9 only gives them a one-time COLA. It's going to be between 2 and 6% depending on when the educator retired. But there's also an additional one-time payment for retired teachers who are ages 70 to 75. The legislature already set aside money for this from that budget surplus, a total of $5 billion that would go towards these retired teachers. And this is something that, frankly, this is not a want for retired teachers. This is a need. Healthcare, you know, when people age, obviously our healthcare expenses go up, other things go up. 20 years of making
it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that that's been the case.
And so the legislature, what they started to do and what they have done in past years is they would give what they like to call a 13th check. And so basically we'll give you one extra check every year.
Which was not sufficient.
Which was not by any means sufficient.
Yeah.
This is a percentage increase in their actual payments. And so these are people who dedicated their lives to our children. And some of you are educated voters, you know, today because of those educators.
What local do here? Let's see what local did.
You know what local did.
I just want to be proud of everybody around
Local
here.
was overwhelmingly supportive of this COLA.
81% in Williamson County. 85% in Hayes County. See, that's I love that. I love that.
Because, I mean, again, this is giving back to the people who give so much to all of us.
And we should reiterate, this money isn't going to be taken from somebody else, given to the teachers. It's money that's there to be spent for things like this. This is what surpluses, in my opinion, are for, to take care of people like teachers, right?
Absolutely. So this is this was a great thing that the state figured out.
You know what I'm going to give them, Ashley? I'm going to give Travis County a star.
Good, wonderful.
Just a beautiful purple star.
Does Williamson County get one too?
Sure, you can give them one. Give them a star.
I'll give them a star.
Williamson County gets a star for Prop 9.
We like Prop 9. We're not supposed to like props, but it's fine. We love teachers. We
can stream and we can talk about our teachers. I've got teachers in my family. I know you've got teachers in your family. We all had teachers in the classroom at some point or another. I think this is important. Texans agreed with me.
Yep. Absolutely, they did. All right, let's go back to totals and let's move on to. Did I hit the total?
Yeah,
okay,
you
I
got
already
it.
hit it. Just making sure.
It's all good.
Sure
I love this thing. This thing has gotten pretty fast too, right?
Okay, so this is Prop 10, and this is a really interesting proposition. And you can tell it's interesting because if you look at we've got a Christmas Texas.
Finally got some red on
red and green. Basically, Prop 10 would exempt from property taxes, business property taxes, medical equipment held by medical companies and biomedical companies. So part of a business's property taxes is they have to pay taxes on the things that they have to run their business. You think about your computers, your desk, all the things in your office space. Well, medical equipment obviously costs more. Biomedical equipment, PPE, things of that nature. The legislature wanted to change this because Texas is one of only a few states that actually taxes medical equipment as part of those property taxes. And so the proposal was to exempt those taxes. And one of the things that I think is really, really interesting, and especially when we zoom in
to
our local, you know, I like to think, you look at Williamson County, again, it's close. It's 57% reporting. Travis County, a little bit stronger. Hayes County, also not a fan of this. And I think, right, obviously I don't know the minds of all the voters, but to me it goes back to schools. So when you take this money out, the Texas Legislative Budget Board found that the foundation schools program, which is what we use to fund our schools, if you were to exempt this, schools would lose $43 million in fiscal year 2025. It would be up to $60 million in fiscal year 2028, and that number would just continue to go up.
And in layman's terms, that means you would be getting less tax in turn using that money to spend. So that's where the loss comes from.
Right. That's
the taxes aren't being collected.
Right. The taxes would not be collected, and so schools would lose out on money that they would have otherwise gotten. And so I think that is why you see some voters who are a little more want to pump the brakes, if you will, on this idea.
Well, anytime you have this word in a proposition, it's going to be a serious discussion in households, in businesses, and things of that nature.
And there's also this idea that Texas is already business friendly. We already give a lot of breaks and advantages to businesses. So why do we need to do one more when we know it's going to take money away from public schools? And so if we zoom back out, even though that is, sort of the thought, obviously, in several counties in Texas, overall, it looks like, this is getting much more support. Again, we're at 41% reporting, so the AP not ready to call this race just yet, but certainly interesting to see.
There's still some populous counties. El Paso's still out. You've got some in East Texas with some, Tyler area with some votes still out. Obviously, along here, you're not going to have a whole lot of many voters, but there's still some vote to be counted.
Absolutely. I'm curious to see this is Montgomery County. Okay, I was curious to see which county this was that was
just north of H-Town.
Yes.
Do you still call it H-Town?
Yes, it's still called H-Town.
Just making
sure. We may have some people. I told my family in H-Town to turn on KVUE Plus.
Well, let's see, what did Harris County do? What did Harris County do?
Harris County, is supportive.
Yeah.
You think about this, the medical center.
The medical center, that's true.
Okay, so Harris County Medical
employs a lot of people.
Exactly. Yeah. This is so not surprising to see Harris County vote. What is that? Rockwall.
Look how close, though, 60 votes.
60 votes.
I just was curious, that little tiny county. I didn't know what that was.
Well, yes.
And now I know. See, I've learned something tonight.
Lots of little counties.
Proposition 10.
All right, so let's talk about Prop 11.
I don't know anything about this one.
Okay, allow me to educate you, Brian. Okay, so there are two propositions on the ballot that are specifically related to other entities. And so Prop 11 has to deal with El Paso County. There it is there. And basically, El Paso County is not able to, let me get my thoughts together. They need money for their parks. Their parks and rec facilities are underfunded because the legislature allows some areas in Texas, some counties in Texas to have bond propositions and other different propositions
to raise the money necessary.
Exactly, for parks. El Paso was not one of them. And so this would allow them to be able to have a reclamation district so that they can get money, bonds, if voters approve, to work on their parks and improve their parks.
Why don't they have that?
I did not write the Texas Constitution.
Is that a state thing or is that a city?
It's a state thing, and there's certain reclamation districts.
Okay.
And so some of the, obviously we have them here in our area, but they don't have them everywhere in Texas.
Interesting. See, I've learned something now.
Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me.
Always happy to teach.
Again, another specific to one area.
Yes, and so this one is really interesting because this is about Galveston County, which, is over here in the Houston area. We're going to test my...
go ahead. Do you want to try?
No, wait.
No?
Nope, that's Brazoria.
Right next to it. There it is. Yeah.
See, they're so close. My fingers were too big. That's what it is.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So this is interesting because the current treasurer of Galveston County ran on the sole promise that he was going to do everything in his power to abolish this position. So his point is that the county could be saving so much money, an estimated $450,000 a year. Some estimates are $500,000 a year that the county could be saving if they would consolidate this office into other offices within the county and, maybe do some outsourcing of some payroll or things of that nature, more affordable ways to do things rather than having him. And he believes in this so much that he forwent his salary.
He ran for office in order to eliminate the office that he ran for.
Ran for office, won, said, do not pay me.
Hey, you got to give him credit. What's his name? Do we know his name? I'll write his name up here if we know.
I know his name. I forgot his name. Does my producer remember his name?
Hang on
if she tells us. Oh, get it quick. She's going to get it. It's unfortunate that I cannot remember this man's name. As many times as I said it to you guys on the news and showed you his picture, it escapes me. So, but he ran solely on that purpose. There are other counties in Texas, I want to note, that have abolished their treasurer.
Yeah.
Several of them, but they did it back in the 1980s. Galveston was not one of the ones that did it back then, and so they wanted Hank Doogie.
Hank, let's give him some props. Hank.
He wants to save the people some money.
And he's going to.
And it looks like he's going to.
Hank is in favor of yes, right?
Yes. We got to get rid of this writing option.
You know, it adds to the, the effectiveness.
It does.
Right?
It does. I'm really feeling
of the story. So Prop 12 looks like it's pretty close statewide. Why did the state vote on this? Why wasn't this a local thing?
Because, again, this is in the Constitution. The Constitution of Texas requires counties to have certain offices.
Okay.
And if you want to abolish an office, everyone in Texas has to approve it.
So you got some jokers in Travis County going, sure, let's get rid of the Galveston treasurer.
Yes, that's exactly. Well, but you got some folk in Travis County going, no.
Exactly the same. Almost 50.
Don't get rid of him. You need your treasurer.
You need your treasurer.
And it's just interesting because this is why it's important to be an educated voter.
That's the key.
The people in Galveston overwhelmingly elected Hank Doogie.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly. Because, again, they also want to, the idea that your county can save $500,000 a year.
That's a pretty good amount of money for a county like Galveston.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, let's put that money towards, I don't know, infrastructure, because
I love infrastructure. I'm a huge infrastructure fan.
Yes. All right, so let's move on to Prop 13.
Here it is. Me and Ashley and myself have had a healthy debate on this one tonight.
We have had a very healthy debate, starting at 7 p.m. when early voting totals.
Tell them what Prop 13 is all about.
So Prop 13 is about raising the minimum age, the forced age for a judge to retire. So in Texas, judges have to retire when they turn 75 years old. And if a judge wins an election, and their terms are 6 years, and they turn 75 within the first 4 years, they have to retire on December 31st of the year that they turn 35. If it's in
75.
75,
yeah.
Yes, if it's within the 4 years. So if I'm in my term and I turn on year 3, I turn 75 on December 30th. December 31st, I am out of there, even though the people elected me and wanted me in office for 6 more years. Yeah. This proposition would have raised that required retirement age to 79. So Brian is with the people.
I agreed with the state.
With the people. It's not been called yet.
If we're allowed to say that, I don't want to take sides. I understood why this is given to the people to decide.
Yeah,
I think it's important if you're going to have some interaction with the judge, you should be able to at least have some say in that position. That's what I'm in favor of.
Sure.
I agree with that.
But you do get to elect that position.
You do get to elect that position, so you get 2 says.
Sure. Here's why I think I'm a little surprised by this outcome is when I think about how strongly former President Donald Trump polls in Texas.
True.
He polls, did it just change?
It just went up
even
a lot.
More? He polls so strong in Texas. And so this is someone who is 77 years old.
True. That's a good point.
Who would not be allowed to be a judge in Texas, especially if this fails. And so that's where I think I sometimes am perplexed, is that people would say, you can be 77 and be the president, but you can't be 77 and be a judge. That's where I'm like, a little confused.
What Travis County say? Well, I'm just curious.
It's all red, Brian.
It is red, but I bet it's not terribly red. Look, it's closer there. It's
sure.
Now, I bet Williamson County's not.
No, Williamson County is.
You can tell the difference there.
They want to allow these judges to retire.
I'm actually surprised Travis County wasn't green. I thought there would be more green in some of the urban counties.
Sure.
Travis County, Harris County, Dallas County, Tarrant County.
Well, and when you think about what lawmakers said when they were debating this, is they said, life expectancy is not what it used to be.
True.
People are living longer, and if people are, of sound mind and can get voters to vote for them and they want to still serve, we should allow them to serve.
Sure.
That it would be a benefit. But the voters of Texas, as of right now,
it's on the ballot,
are saying, no, they need to retire.
Oh, look at that big difference there. 1 vote out in Hudspeth County. Oh. Never been to Hudspeth.
So many voters, all 31 of them. Thanks for coming out and participating tonight.
Am I standing in front of this thing? People can't even see it.
They can see.
Hudspeth County is just green, barely.
Yeah, barely.
13.
Also, Panhandle. They don't want to discriminate.
Oh, look at there, Lipscomb and Hudspeth.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Sounds like an old Western, doesn't it?
Our final prop of the night.
Go back total on 14.
Totals is Prop 14, and this would create the Centennial Park Fund, and this is related to something that we heard so much about for months, and that was Fairfield Lake Park up in the Dallas area. You had an energy company who was leasing this ginormous amount of land to the state for free to be used as a state park. And they said, you know what, we need to sell this land. Hey, state of Texas, do you want to buy this land? We're going to offer it to you first. And the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department said, we would like to, but we just don't have the money. And so the energy company said, all right.
A lot of us know that feeling.
Hello, developer, private developer, you can have this land and you can build your houses on it. Well, there are no houses on this land right now because the county invoked eminent domain to pause that, and the lawmakers want to start a fund, and I'm trying to see $1 billion. How
much?
How much? $1 billion.
$1 billion.
This is already set aside. Yeah, this is already
is that surplus? Surplus
money, so it's already in the budget, and it's $1 billion so that Texas Parks and Wildlife can not only buy new parkland as it becomes available, but also improve our existing parks. So to give them some revenue and some funds to do that, this has already been called. This race has been called, and so that is happening.
All right, we've got some local. You want to talk about some more local races?
Let's talk about some local races. I'm going to switch my notes, so you're going to see me step over here.
I'll just entertain them for a minute.
I just want to make sure that I have all of my numbers. I loved that.
Let's do this. Can I touch this side for a minute?
Absolutely.
Let's just zoom in so that we can see the local counties. And this isn't going to be, these aren't going to be highlighted, the things we're going to talk about, but you can see the number, the turnout. So we'll kind of get an idea of how many people turned out to vote. Not really necessarily what they chose, but how many came to the polls as we start. Let's just start right here in Travis County. And you can see just a rough estimate of how many people went to the polls. What's that, about 70,000? Is that it? 70,000?
That is it.
Good.
Voter turnout.
People vote. Why would you not vote?
I've literally been standing in this very position asking that question for years now. Let's talk about the propositions that folks in Travis County had. So they had Prop A, which was $233 million for mobility projects and road projects. And you can see, Brian, it's looking good.
Lot for it, 76%, 52,175 Travis Countyans voting for Prop A. Again, that's the $233 million in bonds for the mobility projects. Again, infrastructure. Yep. I don't know how we get to where we need to be, but these kinds of things help.
Yep, certainly do help. When we look at Prop B, this is $276 million for parks. And again, you know, people love their parks more than they love the roads, apparently.
we are in Travis County.
Indeed.
77% voting for, 23% against. Prop B here in Travis County.
Yep. All right, so moving on to Williamson County, and did you want to look at how many people
let's see
voted
the turnout in Williamson County.
The Williamson County turnout, one of the things that I want to note that I really like about what they are able to do is they give us a early day and an early voting count. So earlier in the day when I took a look at it, it was about 14% of registered voters who had cast ballots. But again, that's not a lot.
Yeah, what do we got here? 27 plus age 35, roughly 36,000 voters in Williamson County. Again, this has nothing to do with Prop A in Williamson County. This is just the overall vote for Prop 14. Right. But you can just see the turnout is what we're looking at. These two numbers added together is what we're looking at for the Williamson County voters.
Right, and when you take a look at your screen, so what we're talking about Prop A, and I think we skipped Prop A, so we've moved on to Prop B, but I want to know, okay, there's Prop A.
There it is.
So it's $825 million for bonds for roads, and you can see the total number, which is a little different than what we have on our screen. And the reason I want to know why that is, right?
It's not too far off.
It's not too far off, but that's just early voting numbers. If you look at what we have on our screen there, and what we have here is a 57% reporting. So that's our early voting as well as some of our day of voting. And so that's why you see these totals in terms of, if you're looking at these two numbers behind us, if you see why that's a little different than when we pull up those bond elections, that's why that is. So Prop B in Williamson County was $59 million for parks, and it's looking like people in Wilco like their parks as well.
Over 22,300 voters, 61% in Williamson County in favor of this proposition. This is Prop B, right? Yeah, Prop B.
Let's take it on over to Maynard.
I love Maynard.
Well, Maynard wants to be loved, right? And so they have a proposition, $15 million in bonds for economic development. And this would include things like utility improvements, roads, all that infrastructure you talk about.
I love it.
Grants for commercial businesses and mixed-use projects as well as residential projects. And you can see that right now the voters are in favor of it. But my goodness, look at that voter turnout.
That is not great, not optimal. Again, I think this is just the early number. We don't have the final total yet. Again, this is Travis County, but not great.
But we also want to know, when you don't vote and then you have to pay more money for bonds, well, that's why, because you didn't go vote. Prop B was $61.7 million for parks and trails and recreational facilities. They also want to build a completely new rec center, and you can see they've got a lot of support for that one.
Well, it's one of those areas, like we talked about earlier, growing, changing, more people moving in. You got to have the things for the people to have, you know, recreation, infrastructure, roads, housing. It's all part of the plan. Here's Prop C. That's for City Hall library improvements, right?
Yeah, they want to build a new building to house City Hall and the library and some other city services, and that would be $90 million. Let's get into some school bonds.
Oh, here's some good ones coming up.
Schools want to build some things. Lake Travis ISD.
Right. The Cavaliers.
They're kind of a popular football team, I think.
They play Vandergrift in the first round of the high school playoffs Friday night. It's Jeff and Tyler and Corey's game of the week.
It is the game of the week, and the folk in Lake Travis want $143 million for a new stadium to play those future games in, as well as stadium renovations. And it looks like folk are fans of that proposition.
About 8,000 people showed up to vote, which is not terrible. I don't know how many.
But they voted. That's the early votes too, so that's certainly worth noting.
That's true. They want their Cavaliers to have a new stadium out there.
When we look at the city of Georgetown, they had some bond propositions. So they had a $56 million customer service center bond. And so basically, this would be a new facility that they would build so that they consolidate a bunch of offices like the utilities and the billing that are in all these different areas. They want to build a new building for that. And it's kind of close, Brian.
Yeah, it really is. You know, 54%, just over 5,300 in favor of Prop A in Georgetown, one of the, if not the fastest growing city in the entire country. A lot of people moving there. They have a lot of issues with infrastructure there they're working on.
Absolutely, they do.
And this is one of those things along those lines. 54% for, 46% against. They're in Georgetown Prop A.
Yeah, when we look at Prop B in Georgetown, that is for parks, $49 million for parks to build a new expansion to the recreation center. It's going to have a third gym, more space for some of their programming, as well as park improvements.
Parking? What? Someone's actually building parking?
They're going to build parking spaces so that when people go to the park and rec center, they can have a place to put their cars. An indoor pool. They're going to do it all over there if this is.
I'm moving to Georgetown. Can I go there now? Parking and a pool? Come on, Ashley. Does it get better than that? Let's just give Georgetown some props.
You want to give Georgetown some? Do they get a star? You got to push your button.
I was going to give them a star right here.
Okay.
Georgetown.
Watch out, Brian Mays may be your new neighbor.
We love you, Georgetown. We love you.
Georgetown also looking to get a new animal center. So they have Prop C, which is $15 million to expand their sheltering capacity. And they could do this a number of ways. They could either partner with another local government entity in order to do that, or they could expand the city's, animal shelter. They're kind of looking at the different ways that they could do that, what's best. But regardless of what they do, they know they need money to do it.
They need $15 million, and they're going to get it. 68% to 32% right now. Well, I say they're going to. We haven't called this. The early votes are in, and it looks favorable for Prop C.
Yes.
I've been to that animal shelter, by the way. Unbelievable staff and a great facility. And it's really, if you're looking for an animal or you live in Williamson County and want to go, it's really a neat place.
Yeah, even to volunteer, even if you don't have the space, but you want to help out, you can help out. This is an interesting proposition, and this is Prop D, and it's $10 million for a YMCA partnership. So basically, this would be used, the city would spend $10 million to jointly construct a new YMCA center in the city of Georgetown. YMCA would cover all of the operating costs, and Georgetown residents would get a discounted membership to go to the YMCA. And this new YMCA building would be on the west side of town, which is where we're seeing, so much of that growth happening in Georgetown with the new neighborhoods popping up. So this is a really interesting prop, and it looks really close right now.
I know a lot of people have been involved in this along the way. A lot of people wondering how this was going to turn out. And as you can see through the early vote, about 10,000 votes in, just about 50-50, 52 to 48. So this is one we'll be following, of course. We'll let you know when we get more vote totals in for that Prop D in Georgetown. That's a big one for a lot of people in Georgetown.
It is. We're going to get to another set of bonds dealing with schools, and these are called voter approval tax rate elections. And so I just want to take a moment, Brian, to explain what these are, because I don't think people may remember what this is. This used to be a little something we like to call the rollback rate back in the day before the legislature made some changes. And so the legislature decided that if a city or school was going to increase taxes, school districts, right, we're going to increase taxes by more than, it used to be 8%, you had to have an election. They reduced that number. And so now if a school district wants to increase taxes by more than 2.5% or have that maintenance and operations tax rate, which is their day-to-day, that's how they pay for their day-to-day things. If they want it to be more than what the state set, they have to have a voter approval tax rate election, which is a VATRE, is what we like to call it. And so these are particularly interesting in Round Rock and Pflugerville. You're going to see this is they would set the tax rate at 91 cents for every $100 of home valuation, right? And if this passes, this is going to put $19 million into the district's operating fund to give all of the staff and that school district a 3% pay increase across the board. And that's in addition to some pay increases that the school board already approved.
Back in May.
And we know we're seeing teacher shortages. We know that we're seeing issues with inflation. And so obviously this is really, really important. And this is money that would go towards paying everyone, not just the teachers though, the school bus drivers, the cafeteria workers,
librarians.
Yes, everyone. Your speech pathologists, your TAs, everyone would get that raise. And there's a lot of support for it early on. A
lot of support, 75% in fact of the counted votes right now in favor of Round Rock ISD's Proposition A, 25% against. Again, these are early numbers, but a pretty good turnout for Round Rock citizens voting on Proposition A here. Again, we'll follow that one, let you know when we learn more updated numbers.
So these are interesting. We have a few more of these VATREs to look at. And Pflugerville and Lago Vista are really, really interesting. And here's why. Their tax rates are set to decrease whether people pass these propositions or not. It's just a matter of how much will it decrease, right? So their voter approved tax rate election, if they do not pass this, if this fails, the tax rate would be $1.03 for every $100. This would make it $1.10. If they don't pass it. But regardless, it's going to be less than the $1.30 that they're paying right now. But if people decide to approve this, it's going to be $10.7 million in funding for the school district. They also are going to use that to give raises. They're going to use all that money to give raises to the teachers and the staff. And it's interesting because, earlier this year, Pflugerville was talking about having to shut schools, close schools. They're dealing with a major budget deficit over there. And so this is a really, really important one for the folks in Pflugerville.
Great schools in Pflugerville. We know great teachers in Pflugerville right now. 64% for, 36% against.
So Lago Vista, same thing. A lot. You're going to hear this, is that's the story across Texas. So many schools are hurting. So many schools are dealing with budget deficits, and they just don't have enough money, and they certainly don't have enough money to pay teachers.
And to retain those teachers. Yeah, you're right. That's the
big thing. And so Lago Vista is in the same boat as Pflugerville, where the tax rate is going to go down regardless. It's just a matter of how much it's going to go down. And so their election is to make the tax rate $1.01 for every $100 in home valuation, almost like $1.02. $1.01, $1.02. That money would raise $800,000 for the district's budget, and that would pay for salaries and school safety and security measures. They also want to do some money. You will remember that the legislature passed, some might call this an unfunded mandate, where they required armed security be on every campus in Texas. And you got a lot of school districts go, well, one, we don't have the money, and two, where are we going to find those people who are qualified to do this? Well, they would use some money if voters approve their tax rate to do that.
75% to 25%, all those propositions, Round Rock, Pflugerville, Lago Vista, all four in the early voting.
It's looking good. Okay, so while this is not one of our districts.
What happened here,
While
Ashley?
this is not one of our districts, we know there's a lot of political junkies in the area, given our proximity to the Capitol. And so we want to talk about House District 2. This is the House seat. You will recall this year, the House of Representatives voted unanimously, 147-0, including the Speaker himself voting, to expel Brian Slayton from serving in the House of Representatives. This was after there were allegations and an investigation into him for providing alcohol and having an inappropriate relationship with a staffer who is under the age of 21. He is married, and so we're talking about an extramarital affair and giving alcohol. And the allegations against him were it was so hard to listen to, in terms of how this happened. And so the House voted overwhelmingly. There was a special election to fill that vacated seat. 6 candidates, Brian, running. You've got
Refresh my memory, House District 2 is West Texas, right?
Yes, sir, it is. And so you have 1 Democrat. And there's actually 5. There's more running than we have on this screen. These are just who's in the lead. And right now, it's only 20% reporting, but I think with this many candidates, it's safe to assume that this could go to a runoff. And if that happens, that will be December the 9th. It's Saturday, December the 9th is the runoff date. Another interesting race, Brian, that could go to a runoff. We don't have these numbers right now for you, but we are watching the Houston mayoral race.
That's right. Let's see it. Let's see how many people voted at least. We don't have that in our computer. I'm just curious.
We don't have that because I have the wrong county there. Harris County.
That's a pretty good turnout. Not tough.
It's okay. Think about the population of.
What is Houston now? 7 million, 8 million? How many?
A couple of million.
Yeah, okay. And, so maybe not so great.
Yeah, so not so great voter turnout when you have some high profile names. So you have State Senator John Whitmire, who has really been a champion for criminal justice, and you have U.S. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. They are the 2 front runners in the mayoral race, and so we had another former state senator, Sylvester Turner, who is serving as the mayor now, but his term limit has, expired, and so it will certainly be interesting to see how that shakes out.
I was trying to see if I could get some.
See if you can get some results.
Okay, here's what I've got. Whitmire 43.2%, Sheila Jackson Lee 36.5%. That's about 30% of the vote. So that's runoff territory.
Yeah, that's definitely runoff. There are many more candidates in that race, but they are by far the top 2 frontrunners. And that's a race that's getting national attention, we want to know.
Now, Whitmire's state senator
Yes.
And he's a Democrat. That means that seat is going to be open if he holds on to that victory in the runoff.
Right.
So what happens in that case?
Well, in that case, the governor will have a special election in which he will appoint, he will call a special election. Voters in Harris County will then get to decide who will be their next state senator. Yeah. And I think you haven't seen a lot of people come out and announce their plans to run because it's better to wait because Representative Sheila Jackson Lee is also a Democrat. So you have two really big Democrats. And so there's two really big seats that could be vacated, a state Senate seat and a U.S. House of Representatives seat.
Interesting.
And so you don't want to hedge your bets. You want to play it safe and see who wins and which seat actually comes open. That's just smart politicking, right? I would not tell anyone to announce, hey, you just sit down. And you just wait. Okay, wait and see what happens. I've been told that a lot,
but I get your point. I see your point.
Right.
That's interesting. That's a great race to follow. And we, of course, coming up at 10 o'clock, we'll have updated numbers on all these. But before we go, Ashley, let's just skim through some of the bigger propositions and see where we stand statewide.
Let's see what's been called. We can just see what's been called.
Good idea.
Yeah, so Prop 1, the right to farm, you have it, Texas. Congratulations, it's in the Constitution.
Grow you some radishes, everybody. Grow you some radishes. Right?
You and radishes. If you guys only know, I've been hearing about radishes all day.
I love a good radish.
So Prop 2, that child care exemption, that property tax exemption for certain child care facilities, it looks like the AP is calling that race. Prop 3, which is prohibiting a net worth tax. We will not have one in Texas.
We don't have one and we won't have one.
Correct. No one's even talking about making one except you, the voters in Texas, have said you don't want it.
You're not going to have it. You don't want it.
Prop 4, that's that increased homestead tax exemption.
A lot of green in the state of Texas for this one. A lot of green.
There's no red on
No red on that one. All the counties reporting are for that one.
Prop 5 is now called, this creates the Texas University Fund so that more Texas universities can have money for research. And it looks like that one has been filed. We're getting to Brian's favorite props now.
The infrastructure props. And people agree, we need it. You got to have it to keep the state rolling. 75% want to create that water fund that's going to help the entire state of Texas.
Indeed. When we look at Prop 7, this one's also been called now.
The power grid. You got a couple of holdouts there.
Travis County, we're the holdout.
I think we can all agree, no matter where you sit on the aisle, that our power is essential.
It is.
It's essential to have power. And to get that power, I understand some people want more more wind energy,
renewables,
more renewable energy. Some people want the gas and oil and other things. But this is going to help everybody, I think, and that's what the Texas voters said.
Prop 8 has also been called. This creates that broadband. Now, this is interesting because we finally see someone who's read
Bexar County
on this, and it's Bexar County.
Whoa!
That is really, really surprising. The legislature, again, giving $1.5 billion. That's already been set aside. That is surplus
I think there's a mistake here because they've checked yes. I think those are flipped.
Because it's been called. So the total is yes.
Okay.
So it's been called, but they voted no. And let me just say this. One of the reasons why some people were not necessarily fans of the broadband fund, because there are reasons for and against all of these propositions.
Sure there are.
There's nothing that says how that money has to be spent. So there's nothing that says that money is going to go to rural areas or that money is going to go to lower income or underserved communities. That's not necessarily written in the legislation.
Okay. Makes sense.
That could be why.
That makes sense. That's a significant difference, but I understand your point.
Absolutely. All right, so Prop 9 is also, we love this one. You're going to draw harder.
I'm going to put some fireworks.
Yay. Go teachers. They deserve this. Our retired teachers deserve this COLA.
Look at that. Look at the difference in vote for and against. Almost 1 million more people decided those retired teachers.
You can see green across the board here because people are all supportive of giving teachers that COLA.
Uh-oh.
Prop 10 has not been called yet, and so this is whether or not we will allow medical equipment to be exempt from property taxes for businesses. So we're still keeping our eyes on this with 49% reporting. But Prop 11, congratulations, El Paso, you will be able to have a reclamation district, so you will be able to have bond elections to let people decide whether or not they want to improve those parks.
They was pretty close. What's the statewide? 61 to 38. What's the statewide? Wow, the state wanted it more than El Paso wanted it.
Well,
that's interesting.
But again, remember, this is only if the voters say yes. So this just lets them. So again, El Paso, you don't have to say yes.
It's just interesting that the state said, we voted for it.
Because we like parks.
I like parks.
Everybody likes a good park.
Who likes the park? I like
All right. Prop 12 has not been called yet about whether or not to abolish the Galveston Treasurer, and it is close. And
that's a lot. Oh, that's statewide. Never mind. That's
yes,
statewide.
this is statewide. If we want to look at Galveston, let's see if I could hit it right.
That's not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all in terms of the difference. An interesting difference. So that'll be one that will be interesting to watch as the night goes.
Here it is. The judge retirement age.
It's been called.
Look at that. I have to admit, even though I understand the premise of the proposition, that does surprise me. That's a pretty significant
That is a pretty
defeat, I should say, not a victory.
Or yeah, depending on, for those judges who say, I want to be able to continue to serve, this is definitely a blow to them. But the Texas people said, thank you for your time. Yeah. Please retire.
Well, that's what they said.
Last one, Prop 14, which is to create the Centennial Park Fund. I should mention, this is a limited fund. Brian, this is not a fund that is going to last until eternity. This is a limited time fund for that $1 billion to be used to purchase new parkland and improve parks in Texas.
$1 billion. This has been fun. I think we're done. Are we done?
I think we're pretty much done. Yeah.
So listen, here's the deal. We're going to have a newscast at 10 o'clock. We're going to go through all of this again, except we're going to have more updated numbers and more analysis from the excellent, what are we calling you now?
The political director.
Political director. I should have known that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But if
you just came up with the name.
It's a good name. You're a director. You're very good at your job. I am not. Text the word VOTE to the number on your screen, 459-9442. Now, here's what we're going to do if you do that. We're going to send you the very latest election results, but you're going to still have to watch the news at 10 because we're going to even have more updated results.
Indeed.
Right, Ashley?
And not only that, we're going to have